you are not broken. You're just misinformed, because the idea that you have to be happy almost all the time, or just as some kind of a baseline is a modern delusion. It's everywhere, in social media, ads, in self-help books. But what if this obsession with constant happiness is actually making us miserable? Today, we'll dive into science, history, and philosophy of happiness, and why chasing it 24/7 can be the real problem. First, we have to understand that it got worse in contemporary world. That's like an epidemic. Rising rates of depression and anxiety, especially in younger generations, correlate now not only with the economic pressure, but even with the screen time and the high rate of expectation collapse. Basically, there's a difference between what you think the life should feel like and how it actually feels. We've been sold the idea that happiness is the default, but it's not. Evolution never promised you peace. It promised you survival. So let's delve into it. In deep and dark Paleolithic times, the happiness as a term wasn't a constant. It was more of a brief signal, like a chemical green line that meant, God, as it worked, do more of that. But it was not really a state to stay in. Even your brain's reward system and the neurotransmitters like dopamine, serotonin, are designed for sustained pleasure, but rather for motivation and reinforcement of seeking it. The brains evolved to respond to threats, not to bask in joy. Dopamine spikes are actually brief. If they would last, we'd never get anything done. You're supposed to keep moving. And the problem with the modern culture, especially in huge capitalist consumer societies, is that we've confused the signals with destinations. We try to turn this high into a permanent mood. And historically, this wasn't a problem. Even ancient Greeks didn't have a word for it as we know it now. Aristotle spoke of eudaimonia, a life of meaning and virtue, not of constant pleasure. And the Stoics didn't even trust happiness. They pursued equanimity, the internal stability, no matter the external health. In Buddhism, the suffering as dukkha is central to existence, and escaping it isn't about endless joy, but about acceptance of your suffering. And the balance is to understand the structure of your experience well enough not to be owned by it. The English word, happiness, comes from the Old Norse, ha, mean luck or chance. So, what have actually changed? As societies grew wealthier, basic needs were met, and the focus shifted to emotional fulfillment. Then, the 20th century sold the dream of a nuclear family and steady job and a white picket fence, and a smile to go with it. Happiness was rebranded, and the self-help industry just exploded. Even today, the global wellness market is worth over 4.5 trillion. But the more we chase happiness as a product, the more elusive it becomes. Studies show that after a certain income level, more money barely affects happiness. But inequality, loneliness, and lack of purpose do. That's where things went sideways. Even the science we rely on hope it would help us cope with it. But psychology was focusing only on mental illnesses up until 2000s. The positive psychology, the invention of Martin Seligman, was studying what makes life worth living. But even he warns that too much focus on positive emotions can backfire, because for the experience of full happiness, we need the full spectrum as well, with the sadness, anger, and even existential dread to grow and adapt. A 2005 study, The Perspective of Psychological Science, found the paradox of hedonism. The people who were focusing on pursuit of happiness like their life goal were actually more unhappy, so obstructively placing your well-being and happiness on the top of ladder create negativity with the well-being. fMRI studies from the University of Colorado even show that people who try to avoid negative emotions and experiences actually experience a much higher level of amygdala activation. Amygdala is actually a stress center and a twitch center of your brain. In short, resisting your negative emotions and sadness can make you even more unhappy. But curiously, in East Asia, when the cultures that value collective well-being over the individual happiness actually report higher levels of individual happiness, despite less emphasis on feeling happy as itself. What's about the European countries so far? Finland is consistently ranked as one of the happiest European countries, but if you give the Finns the word test, they would rather describe themselves as content, not ecstatic, and they try to embrace this melancholy as the part of their daily life. On the other hand, in the United States, there are also high rates of reported happiness, but also high rates of anxiety and depression. Why is that? If I was for distinguish between hedonism, happiness as a pleasure, and life satisfaction, happiness as a favorable. A quick insight that will really help you understand this is that philosophers distinguished between hedonism, happiness as a pleasure, and life satisfaction, happiness as a favorable evaluation of one's life as a whole. And modern research shows that these aren't always aligned. You can feel good in the moment but judge your life as unsatisfying, or vice versa. Split help explain us why the pursuit of constant pleasure can backfire. Actually, if you would outline one of the main problems here, the main culprit is probably the chronic emotional comparison, and your phone is the direct distributor of this problem. Apps don't just show you the other's lives, but make you feel that they're doing better, feeling better, or being better. And this isn't accidental. We all know that social platforms are designed for maximal outperformance and engagement. They have to force you to put a like under the video, to write this and the comment, or just feel this outrage and to share the thoughts, share the post itself, and the other shit. Much more creators now are showing their real struggles and behind the scene records, so it kind of helps to break this illusion of constant happiness. And don't you find this a bitter irony that even in the world when there is a chronic climate dread and political dysfunction, a world that is almost always unstable, you are forced to feel this happiness. Crucially, the class you're in matters the most, and the class you're in matters the most there, because if you're struggling to pay rent, to get a proper healthcare, or just to live without fear, your emotional house isn't about any possible kind of mindset you can get. Crucially, we can dive into the Buddhism or some other stuff. But even if you're not getting enough proper food in childhood, your brain development will be heavily impaired. And the neurotransmitters you're working with in your daily life will work completely different in people who grew in a poor environment. It's all about systems. And even when this has been reckoned with, there's a growing movement from Lisa Feldman-Barrett construction emotion theory to post-boom skepticism about empathy that challenges the whole idea that emotions are universal, fixed, or even always helpful. Think about the last time you felt truly alive. Was it during a perfect vacation, or in a moment of challenge, heartbreak, or ache? Some of the most meaningful memories are tinged with a struggle for some people, and for some it is with more peaceful experiences. But if you sum this up, if you're never stressed, you're most likely not learning anything, and most likely you won't be experience the true potential of your neurotransmitters, so you won't probably experience the happiness you're able for. So let's reframe. If happiness isn't the goal, but a side effect, like alignment of meaning or contribution, what is it? Frankl, the Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, argued that meaning, not happiness, is what sustains us. Even Nietzsche said that he who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow. Maybe the problem isn't the negative emotions themselves, but our refusal to accept them. When a culture pathologizes this discomfort, it builds fragility, and we start mistaking numbness for peace and convenience for progress. But look around, the most resilient people you know probably aren't the ones who chase happiness. They're the ones who live with purpose and even ready to go through some struggle to achieve it, even when it hurts. So to get us all together with some curious facts, even the major happiness boosts of your life, like buying a new car in your house or just meeting the love of your life, would probably end up fading away in less than 3 months. And on the other hand, your social connections, purpose, and acceptance of your negative emotions are the strongest predictors of your well-being. Even the studies on people who are usually reflecting and reckoning on their negative emotions and accepting them as part of themselves in their daily life show that they report 23% higher happiness rates. So to end it briefly, the solution can't be to fix your feelings. It's rather to expect them to stop to be fixed. Because you're not supposed to be happy all the time, and it's not the problem at all. It's actually what makes you human. So remember, the pursuit of happiness isn't about chasing the feeling, but more about chasing a life and moments of this life. That's what really matters. So I hope you enjoyed the video so far. And if you're curious yet, and I know you are, there's much more from where it came from. So click the like button, click the subscription button, and I hope to see you soon.